the desert was a furnace. Heat shimmered across the dunes like a cruel mirage, making the horizon blur into waves of liquid fire. Her name was Elena Marlowe, a woman who had been trained to handle hardship but never expected betrayal to leave her stranded in one of the harshest environments on Earth. When the men who had promised to escort her across the border dragged her from the back of the truck, shoved her onto the hot sand, and sped away without a word, she thought it was a sick joke. But the engine faded into silence, and the realization hit: she was alone, dropped in the desert with no water, no compass, and only the thin line of survival instincts keeping her from collapsing right there. Every breath scorched her lungs, every step left her feeling weaker. She had only the clothes on her back and the memory of the map she had once studied, but in this place, nothing looked familiar. It was an endless ocean of sand dunes, and each crest brought only more emptiness. Hours stretched like days, and when the sun dipped low, the desert's second cruelty arrived, cold, biting, and merciless. Her lips cracked, her throat burned, and her skin peeled beneath the unforgiving sun the next morning. Elena wasn't just any woman. She had served as an intelligence operative for a short time before she walked away from the job. But walking away never meant the job walked away from her. She had made enemies, powerful ones, and she didn't realize until now that being left in this desert wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. She had information someone wanted silenced. And the desert, vast and unforgiving, was their perfect executioner. But Elena was not someone who gave up easily. On the third day, with her strength nearly gone, she spotted something, a faint glimmer in the sand. At first, she thought it was another mirage. But as she crawled closer, she realized it was metal. A broken mirror fragment, maybe from some abandoned gear or a wreck long swallowed by the dunes. With shaking hands, she picked it up. It wasn't water, but it was hope. Because high above, the roar of distant rotors began to echo. At first, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. The desert had already whispered hallucinations into her ears, waterfalls that weren't there, trees that dissolved into dust, voices that belonged to no one. But the sound grew louder, more real. And then she saw it, a massive military helicopter, sweeping low as if searching. Not just any helicopter, it bore the markings she recognized instantly. A SEAL unit. Her heart surged with a strength she didn't know she had left. She pulled the mirror high, angling it into the sun, flashing desperate signals in a rhythm, hoping against hope that someone aboard would see. For a breathless moment, it seemed impossible. The helicopter drifted, banking as if it would vanish back into the endless sky. Then it stopped, hovered, and began to circle back. Someone had seen her. But the rescue was not immediate. As the seal bird descended, kicking up waves of sand in a storm around her, Elena's body trembled with relief. Yet, the moment the crew pulled her aboard, she saw the suspicion in their eyes. Who was she? How had she ended up here? And why was she signaling with military precision? They weren't just here by chance. The SEALs had been on a classified operation, sweeping the area for a hidden enemy weapons cache. Elena's signal had brought them off their path, and now her very presence threatened to derail their mission. But before they could even question her further, the helicopter's pilot shouted unidentified vehicles were approaching fast across the desert floor. Armored jeeps, dust trailing behind them like serpents. Whoever had abandoned her wasn't finished. They wanted to make sure she never left the desert alive. The SEALs had no choice but to engage. Elena found herself strapped in the back, the sound of heavy guns rattling through the cabin as the crew opened fire. Through the open bay, she saw explosions of sand, sparks, and twisted metal as the attackers pushed closer. One of the SEALs shoved a rifle into her hands. "You know how to use it," he barked. She looked him in the eye and chambered around without hesitation. That was answer enough. Together, they fought off wave after wave until the desert was littered with the wreckage of their pursuers. But the battle had drawn too much attention. The helicopter was hit, smoke pouring from one of its engines, forcing the pilot to divert from their planned extraction point. They crash-landed deep in hostile territory, and suddenly, Elena was no longer a rescued civilian, she was part of a fight far bigger than she ever imagined. In the wreckage, the SEAL commander demanded answers. Who was she? Why did enemies chase her like she carried the key to something worth dying for? And that was when Elena revealed the truth. Months earlier, she had intercepted a coded transmission while freelancing for an intelligence contractor. The message spoke of a secret weapons deal, one involving stolen U.S. technology. She had hidden the data, planning to expose it when she found proof. But before she could, the very people behind the deal hunted her down. Dropping her in the desert was their solution. What she didn't know was that the very cache the SEALs had been sent to destroy was connected to that same network. Fate, or maybe something more, had put her in their path. The SEAL commander, hardened and skeptical, faced a decision: leave her behind, or trust her knowledge to lead them to the target. With time running out and enemies swarming the desert, he chose the unthinkable. Elena would guide them. What followed was a brutal march across the wasteland, dodging patrols, facing ambushes, and enduring conditions that tested even the elite SEALs. Elena proved herself time and again, spotting traps, decoding signals, even saving one SEAL's life when an enemy sniper pinned them down. With every step, she earned their trust, not as a burden, but as part of their team. When they finally reached the weapons cache, hidden beneath an ancient ruin, the truth was darker than any of them expected. Inside were crates not just of stolen tech but experimental warheads, the kind that could shift the balance of power if unleashed. Elena's information had been right, but the cost of discovering it had put a target on her back. The SEALs set charges, preparing to destroy everything, but before they could finish, a second wave of enemies descended, this time better armed, better prepared, and with a clear objective: capture Elena alive. She wasn't just a loose end. She was the only one who knew the codes to access the encrypted data behind the weapons deal. The fight that erupted in the ruins was chaos, the gunfire echoing off stone walls, explosions shaking the ground, smoke and dust blinding everyone. Elena fought alongside the SEALs, her exhaustion forgotten as adrenaline drove her forward. When the enemy commander cornered her, demanding the codes, she made a split-second choice. Instead of giving him what he wanted, she slammed the data chip into one of the armed warheads and triggered the detonation sequence. It was suicide, or it should have been. But the SEAL commander tackled her clear as the charges went off, setting off a chain reaction that obliterated the cache and everyone trying to seize it. When the dust cleared, the desert was silent. The SEAL extraction bird finally arrived, and this time, Elena was pulled aboard not as a helpless castaway but as someone who had fought, bled, and earned her place beside them. She looked out across the endless sands, the place where she had been left to die, and knew the story wasn't about her survival anymore. It was about what she had stopped from happening. Her life would never be the same. The enemy she had made would not forget, and neither would the SEALs who now saw her not as a liability, but as one of their own. The desert had tried to bury her. Instead, it forged her into something stronger. And now, we want to know, where are you watching this story from? Which part of the country are you tuning in?